On the outskirts of a small town lived a family of four: Father Frank, his wife Olivia, and their two children. The eldest child, Austin, a boy of 10, and a girl of 6, Jessica. They had recently moved to a nice house surrounded by woods and fields. The house had come to them at an unbelievable bargain price. The neighbours said it had been sold several times before. Each new owner left the house quickly, but Frank didn't think much of it. The convenient location and quiet seemed like a gift after the hustle and bustle of the city streets. With the move to this house, the family enjoyed a quiet life exploring the new home. The children were eager to play in the yard and explore every corner. The house was old, with dark wooden beams, a fireplace, and slightly creaky floors. The basement of the house looked particularly gloomy. It was almost empty, except for a few old shelves that held shabby tools. One evening, Frank went down to the basement to get a tool to mend the fence and noticed something strange. In the far corner, under a layer of earth, he noticed a small hill. It was as if there was something buried under the ground. Frank picked up a shovel and started digging. At a depth of about half a meter, he came across an old large box. He opened it and found the remains of a large dog. The box still had the inscription, "Here lies Rocky." Frank was frightened. He had never heard of a dog once living in the house. Thinking something terrible, he buried the box again and went back upstairs. Frank didn't tell anyone about it so as not to alarm his family. That night he couldn't sleep. He was troubled by a strange feeling that someone was watching him from the darkness. The next morning began as a normal Sunday. However, the neighbors noticed that there was an unusual silence in the family home. The house, which is always full of children's laughter and bustle, stood eerily quiet, worried about the well-being of the new neighbors. One of the occupants, an elderly man named Walter, decided to knock on the door. However, no one opened the door. Without waiting for an answer, Walter looked out the window and saw something that made him recoil instantly. The rooms were drenched in blood, the furniture was overturned, and there were huge claw marks on the floor. With trembling hands, Walter called the police. When the police arrived, they saw a terrible thing. All the family members were dead, their bodies mutilated. You would have thought they had been mauled by a wild animal. The room was mutilated, but the doors and windows were intact. It was as if something of enormous size had silently entered and just as silently left. While looking around the house, the investigator noticed footprints that led to the basement. They went down there and found the spot where the same mound of earth had been. However, the box with the dog remains was not there. In its place, they could see a pit with a lot of blood around it. It was as if something had burst out of the hole. After a thorough investigation, the police were unable to explain what had happened. There were no signs of trespassing or weapons that could have been used to inflict the wounds. The only thing the forensics team noticed were huge claw marks, but they did not belong to any known animal. The locals were shocked. The old-timers recalled that many years ago, a family lived in the house and had a large sheepdog named Rocky. The dog was always considered a kind and loyal protector of the owners. One day she mysteriously died, and no one knew how or why. Since then, strange events began to happen to the house, and each new resident sooner or later left it. After this incident, the house was deserted again. No one else wanted to buy it, and it stood alone, surrounded by silence. The neighbors avoided it. Often at night, a long howl could be heard coming from the house, emitted by a large dog. The neighbors said that Rocky had returned to avenge his forgotten grave, and now he would guard the house from the new tenants. Or perhaps Rocky will be waiting for new tenants to protect his home again.